Someone watched this couple sleep for 3 days. They never knew, but cameras caught everything. July 2018. Sarah and David Mitchell went camping in remote woodland. Experienced campers, safe area. By Monday morning, both vanished without trace. 5 years later, investigators found their abandoned tents exactly as they left them. Then they discovered hidden trail cameras in the trees. The footage revealed someone standing in the darkness every night, getting closer. And on that third night, everything changed. Sarah and David Mitchell had been married for 8 years, both 34 years old, both passionate about the outdoors. They met on a group hiking trip in the Appalachians, bonded over shared love of wilderness, got engaged on a mountain summit. Their marriage was built on adventure. They camped regularly, not casual weekend camping, deep woods camping, remote areas, places where you don't see other people for days. They knew how to read maps, how to purify water, how to handle wildlife encounters. They weren't beginners. They were the couple other campers asked for advice. July 20th, 2018. Sarah and David loaded their truck for a 5-day camping trip. Destination was Blackwood Forest, a dense woodland area in the Pacific Northwest. Thousands of acres of old-growth forest, cedar and hemlock trees hundreds of feet tall, the kind of forest where sunlight barely reaches the ground, where the air stays cool and damp even in summer. Blackwood Forest had established trails, but the Mitchells weren't planning to stay on them. They had permits for backcountry camping. They'd identified a spot on their map, a clearing near a seasonal stream, 3 miles from the nearest trailhead, far enough to guarantee solitude, close enough to hike out if needed. They checked in with the ranger station, filed their itinerary. Expected return date was July 25th. The ranger noted they were experienced, well-equipped. He had no concerns. Sarah showed him their satellite communicator. They could call for help if needed. Everything was in order. The Mitchells started their hike Friday afternoon. 3 miles doesn't sound far, but in dense forest with full packs, it takes hours. The trail was overgrown in places. Roots crossed the path. Fallen logs blocked sections. They moved carefully, reached their chosen campsite by dusk. The clearing was perfect. Flat ground. The stream 20 yards away. Enough open sky to see stars. They set up 2 tents, one for sleeping, one for gear storage, made a fire ring, cooked dinner. Sarah wrote in her journal, a habit she kept on every trip. David checked their position on his GPS. Everything was exactly where it should be. Saturday, July 21st, a normal camping day. They filtered water from the stream, hiked a few miles exploring the area, found animal track, deer, bear scat that looked several days old. Nothing concerning. They returned to camp, cooked dinner, sat by the fire. David took photos of the sunset through the trees. Sarah wrote another journal entry. They went to sleep around 10 p.m. Sunday, July 22nd, another routine day. Morning coffee, a longer hike. They went east following the stream, found a beautiful cascade, sat there for an hour just watching the water. David mentioned how lucky they were to have this place to themselves, to experience wilderness like this. Sarah agreed. This was why they did this, for moments like these. They returned to camp mid-afternoon, made lunch, read books. The forest was quiet, just bird calls and wind through trees. Evening came. They cooked dinner, sat by the fire longer than usual, talked about their next trip, maybe the Rockies, maybe the desert. So many places they wanted to explore together. Monday, July 23rd, the day they were supposed to hike out. They never did. When the Mitchells didn't return Monday evening, the ranger station wasn't immediately worried. Hikers often extended trips, stayed an extra day. It happened all the time. But by Tuesday morning, when they still hadn't checked in, concern grew. The rangers tried their satellite communicator. No response. That was unusual. The device should work even deep in the forest. Wednesday, July 25th. 3 days overdue. Search and rescue was activated. A team of 8 rangers and volunteers headed to the Mitchells' last known location. They followed the trail to the 3-mile mark, then bushwhacked to the coordinates from the filed itinerary. They found nothing. No campsite, no clearing, no tents. The GPS coordinates were accurate. They were in the right place, but there was no evidence anyone had camped there recently. The search team expanded their radius, checked every clearing within a mile. Nothing. The search grew. More volunteers, search dogs, helicopters with thermal imaging. They covered 50 square miles of dense forest, called the Mitchells' names until voices went hoarse. The dogs picked up no scent trails. The helicopters saw nothing through the thick canopy. After 2 weeks, the active search was suspended. Sarah and David Mitchell had vanished completely. No torn clothing, no dropped gear, no signs of struggle, no blood, no disturbed ground, nothing. It was as if they'd never been in that forest at all, but their truck was still at the trailhead. Their permits had been filed. Someone had seen them start that hike. They'd gone in. They just never came out. The case baffled investigators. Experienced campers don't just disappear, especially not 2 people together. One person might have an accident, fall into a ravine, but 2? And why was there no campsite? No evidence they'd been at their intended location? Had they changed their plans? Gone somewhere else? The theories multiplied. Some thought they'd gotten lost, wandered away from their planned site, died somewhere in the vast forest. But the Mitchells had maps, GPS, a satellite communicator. Getting lost seemed unlikely. Others suggested a wildlife attack, but bears don't make people disappear without trace. They leave evidence. Torn tents, scattered gear, blood. There was nothing. Sarah's sister Emma became the public face of the search. She created social media pages, organized volunteer search parties, kept the story in local news. She couldn't accept that her sister was just gone. Someone had to know something. Someone had to have seen something. But weeks became months. Months became years. No new information emerged. The case went cold. Not officially closed, just cold. The forest had swallowed Sarah and David Mitchell, and it wasn't giving them back. The ranger station kept their permits on file. Their truck was eventually towed from the trailhead. Their families held memorial services, even though there were no bodies to bury. Life moved on, but the question remained. What happened to the Mitchells? By 2023, the case was 5 years old. Emma still searched every summer. She'd learned wilderness survival, studied topographic maps, hiked hundreds of miles of forest trails. She'd aged 10 years in 5. The not knowing consumed her. She needed answers, needed closure, needed to bring her sister home. Technology had advanced in 5 years. Ground-penetrating radar, improved satellite imagery, drones with better cameras. Law enforcement agencies had new tools. Cold cases were being reopened. Advanced techniques applied. The Mitchell case came up for review. Detective James Torres inherited the case file. 90 pages of reports, photos, witness statements, search grid maps. He read everything twice. Something bothered him. The campsite. Why had searchers found no evidence at the coordinates? The Mitchells had filed an itinerary, given specific coordinates, but nothing was there. What if the coordinates were wrong? What if they'd actually camped somewhere else? Detective Torres requested drone surveys of a wider area, new high-resolution imagery. If there was an abandoned campsite in that forest, modern technology might find it. The drones flew grid patterns over 200 square miles. The cameras captured every clearing, every break in the canopy. Artificial intelligence analyzed the images, looked for geometric patterns, straight lines, right angles, things that don't occur naturally. August 15, 2023. The AI flagged something, a clearing 2 miles northwest of the original search coordinates. The drone images showed rectangular shapes, too regular to be natural. Detective Torres assembled a team. They hiked to the coordinates the next day. They found it, the campsite. 2 tents still standing, weathered and faded but intact. A fire ring, cooking gear, backpacks hanging from a bear line. 5 years of rain and wind and snow. 5 years of decay. But the camp was there, exactly as the Mitchells had left it. They'd been camping in the wrong location, not at their filed coordinates, 2 miles away. That's why the original search had found nothing. But why hadn't the Mitchells returned? Why abandon a perfectly good camp? The tents showed no damage, no tears, no signs of animal intrusion. The gear was organized, not scattered, not disturbed. It looked like they'd stepped away for a short walk and never come back, but that made no sense. Where would they go without their gear, without their packs, without their supplies? Detective Torres documented everything, photographed the camp from every angle. Then his team began processing the scene. Inside the sleeping tent they found sleeping bags, clothing, personal items, Sarah's journal, David's camera. The journal's last entry was dated July 22nd. Sarah's handwriting was steady, normal. She wrote about the beautiful day, the cascade they'd found, how peaceful everything was. Nothing indicated distress, nothing suggested danger. David's camera contained photos. The last ones were from Sunday evening. Sunset through the trees, the campfire, Sarah smiling. Normal vacation photos, nothing unusual, nothing concerning. The final photo was time-stamped 8:42 p.m. July 22nd, less than 2 hours before they disappeared, because that's what the evidence suggested. Sarah and David Mitchell had vanished sometime after 8:42 p.m. on Sunday, July 22, 2018. They'd left their tent, left their camp, left everything, and never come back. But why? What could make two experienced campers abandon their campsite at night without taking gear? Then Detective Torres noticed something. Trees near the camp had marked straps, weathered but visible. Someone had mounted something in these trees recently, within the last few years. He looked up, saw them. Small boxes, camouflage, trail cameras, 4 of them, positioned around the clearing, all aimed at the campsite. Trail cameras are motion-activated. Hunters use them to monitor game trails. They can record for months on battery power. These cameras looked professional-grade, weatherproof, high capacity. But who had put them here, and when? And more importantly, had they captured anything? Detective Torres carefully retrieved the cameras, brought them back to the station. The forensic team examined them. The cameras were registered to a wildlife research organization, perfectly legal. Researchers had placed them to study bear activity in this section of forest. They'd been installed in June 2018, 1 month before the Mitchells went camping. The cameras had been collecting data for 5 years, thousands of images, hundreds of hours of video, all stored on high-capacity memory cards. The forensic team began reviewing footage, starting from July 20th, the day the Mitchells arrived. They saw Sarah and David enter the clearing, set up their tents, make camp. The cameras had captured everything, every movement, every action. For 3 days the footage showed a normal camping trip, the couple cooking, hiking, relaxing, nothing unusual. Until the third night, July 22nd, 8:50 p.m. The camera facing the campfire captured something. Movement at the edge of the clearing, just beyond the firelight. The footage was grainy. The night vision wasn't perfect, but something was there, watching. The timestamp showed it stayed for 11 minutes, then moved, circled the camp. Another camera caught it, then another. Whatever it was moving around the perimeter, staying in darkness, staying hidden. 9:15 p.m. Both Mitchells emerged from their tent, not casually, quickly. David had his headlamp on. Sarah stayed close to him. They stood by the fire, looking into the forest. David swept his headlamp back and forth. The cameras captured his light beam cutting through darkness, searching. They stood there for 6 minutes, then retreated to their tent. The camera angle showed them sitting inside, awake, watching the tent entrance. 9:40 p.m. Movement again. Closer this time. Multiple cameras captured it, circling, getting nearer to the tent. The Mitchells must have heard it, must have known something was out there. The tent remained still. They were inside, waiting, watching. 10:03 p.m. The tent burst open. Sarah and David ran, not toward the trail, away from it, into the forest, running. The cameras caught them for maybe 20 seconds, then they were gone. Into darkness, into dense trees beyond camera range. They never came back. But the cameras kept recording, for hours, for days, for 5 years. And what they captured after the Mitchells ran would change everything investigators thought they knew about this case, because something else appeared in that clearing, something that had been there all along. And it wasn't what anyone expected. Detective Torres watched the footage frame by frame. What happened after 10:03 p.m. would rewrite the entire investigation. The Mitchells ran into the forest. The cameras lost them in darkness. For 3 minutes the clearing was empty, just abandoned camp. Dying fire, crickets, the normal sounds of night. Then at 10:06 p.m. movement appeared, not at the edge this time, in the center, near the fire ring. A bear, large black bear, maybe 400 pounds. It had been circling the camp all evening. The movement the Mitchells heard, the presence they sensed, the shadow at the tree line. Not a person, not a predator stalking them. A bear doing what bears do, investigating smells, looking for food. Completely normal behavior. The bear walked through the campsite, sniffed the fire ring, the embers still glowing, approached the gear tent, pawed at it briefly, tore a small hole, but nothing inside interested it. The Mitchells had hung their food properly, in a bear bag 20 feet up a tree away from camp. Standard protocol, nothing to attract it at ground level. The bear circled once more, sniffed the sleeping tent entrance, then lost interest, walked back into the forest, gone by 10:20 p.m. The entire encounter lasted 14 minutes. Torres paused the video, sat back. That was it. That was the threat. A curious bear doing exactly what wildlife does in forest. The Mitchells had done everything right. Proper food storage, good camp setup, But in that moment of fear, they'd made the one wrong choice. They ran, and running from a bear at night in unfamiliar forest is almost always fatal. The clearing was empty again. The fire burned down to embers. Hours passed. The cameras kept recording. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Nothing. No movement. No Mitchells. No bear. Just an abandoned camp in darkness. Just the wind moving branches. Just the forest breathing. Dawn came. The cameras switched from night vision to daylight mode. Still empty. Still waiting. Still no sign anyone would return. Detective Torres fast-forwarded through the next day. Monday, July 23rd. The camp sat undisturbed. No animals. No people. Just silence. The camera timestamps showed hours passing. Morning became afternoon. Afternoon became evening. Still nothing. The Mitchells never returned, but something else did. Tuesday morning, 7:30 a.m. Movement at the clearing's edge. Not a bear this time. A person. Male, mid-20s, wearing a backpack. He stopped at the tree line, stared at the camp, looked around carefully, then approached. The cameras captured him clearly in morning light. He walked through the campsite slowly, looking at everything. The tents, the gear, the cold fire ring. He opened the gear tent, looked inside, backed away. He checked the sleeping tent, unzipped it, looked in. His face showed confusion, concern. He stood there for several minutes, clearly trying to decide what to do. Then he did something unexpected. He left, walked away, back into the forest, didn't take anything, didn't disturb anything, just looked and left. The timestamp showed he was there for 8 minutes, then gone. Detective Torres paused the footage. Who was this person? Another camper? A hiker? Why had he looked at the camp and left? Why not report it? An abandoned camp with all gear intact is unusual, concerning. Most people would notify rangers. This person just walked away. Torres ran facial recognition. Nothing. The man wasn't in any database, wasn't reported missing, wasn't connected to the case. A ghost. Someone who'd been there, seen the abandoned camp, and never told anyone. But why? The footage continued. Days passed. The camp sat empty. Weather moved through. Rain, wind, the tents held, the gear stayed put. Thursday afternoon. More movement. This time 3 people, hikers. They found the camp. Their reaction was different. Immediate concern. One pulled out a radio, called it in. The timestamp showed 4:30 p.m. July 26th. That call had triggered the expanded search, the one that covered 50 square miles, but by then the Mitchells had been gone for 4 days. The search teams had looked for people in distress, for injured hikers, for bodies. They'd searched drainage areas, ravines, places where someone might fall. They never considered that 2 experienced campers would run from a bear and get lost. That scenario seemed unlikely, but the footage told a different story. Sarah and David Mitchell ran into dense forest at night, panicked, disoriented, without gear, without headlamps after David's died or was dropped, without supplies, in darkness, in terrain they didn't know. They ran from a threat that wasn't actually threatening them, and somewhere in that forest they'd gotten lost, or injured, or worse. Detective Torres assembled his team, showed them the footage. The reactions were mixed. Relief that there was no foul play, no criminal, just a tragic misunderstanding, but also frustration. If only the Mitchells had stayed in their tent. If only they'd realized it was just a bear. If only they'd had more experience with wildlife encounters. So many ifs-onlys. But one team member, a forensic analyst named Dr. Sarah Chen, noticed something else. She asked Torres to replay the footage of the couple running. He did. She watched 3 times, then pointed at the screen. Look at the direction. They didn't run randomly. They ran northeast, consistently. Even as they disappeared into trees, the cameras caught their trajectory. Northeast. Dr. Chen pulled up topographic maps. Northeast from the campsite led to rougher terrain, steeper slopes, but also to something else, a game trail, used by deer and elk. It would be visible even at night, worn path through undergrowth. If the Mitchells hit that trail in darkness, they might have followed it, thinking it was a human trail, thinking it led somewhere safe. The game trail went 2 miles northeast, then it dead-ended at a cliff face, 100-foot drop, massive rock wall, no way forward, no way down. If the Mitchells followed that trail in darkness, they would have reached the cliff. Then what? Turned back? Tried to find another way? Waited for dawn? Detective Torres organized a new search, focused on the game trail and the cliff area. 20 searchers, dogs, climbing equipment. They would search every inch of that corridor. 5 years later, But they had direction now. They had evidence. They had footage showing exactly where the Mitchells had gone. But first Torres had to tell Emma. She deserved to know. Deserved to see the footage. Deserved to understand what happened to her sister. He called her. Asked her to come to the station. Told her they'd found the campsite. Found footage. Had answers. Emma drove 3 hours from Portland. Arrived pale and shaking. 5 years of waiting about to end. 5 years of not knowing about to become knowing. She wasn't sure which was worse. Torres showed her the footage in a private room. Warned her it would be difficult. Warned her she'd see her sister alive and then watch her disappear. Emma said she needed to see it. Needed to know. She'd imagined 1,000 scenarios. Needed the real one. Emma watched in silence. Saw her sister and David setting up camp. Living their normal camping trip. Laughing. Looking happy. Looking safe. The last time Sarah was okay. The last time she was just on vacation. Then Emma saw the bear. Saw the tent burst open. Saw them run. Saw them disappear into darkness. She watched the camp sit empty. Watched days pass. Watched her sister never come back. Watched other people find the camp and her sister wasn't there. Wasn't anywhere. Emma cried. Not the dramatic crying of fresh grief. The exhausted crying of old pain finally having context. 5 years of searching. 5 years of hoping. 5 years of building scenarios in her mind. And the answer was this. A bear. A moment of panic. A wrong decision. So simple. So stupid. So final. She watched the footage twice more. Asked questions. Why did they run? Why not stay? Torres explained bear behavior gently. How a tent offers protection. How the bear wasn't aggressive, just curious. How running triggers chase instinct even though this bear didn't chase. How the Mitchells made the wrong choice in a moment of fear. How anyone might have done the same. Emma asked about the man, the one who found the camp Tuesday morning. Torres said they were trying to identify him. Emma looked at the footage again. Paused on his face. Something familiar. She asked to see it again. Her face changed. She knew him. His name was Marcus Webb, Sarah's ex-boyfriend. They dated years before she met David. Broken up amicably. Stayed friends. But why had he been there? Why had he looked at the abandoned camp and left without reporting it? Detective Torres pulled Marcus Webb's information. Seattle address, 36. Tech worker. Clean record. Torres called him. Marcus agreed to come in. Didn't sound surprised. Marcus arrived Wednesday morning. Torres showed him the footage. Marcus watched calmly. When it ended, he spoke. Yes, that's me. Yes, I was there. Yes, I should have reported it. Marcus explained. Solo backpacking trip. Wrong turn. Found the camp by accident. Recognized Sarah's gear immediately. Called out. No response. Saw everything there but no people. He'd assumed they'd gone for a morning hike. Would be back soon. He didn't want to make it awkward, so he left. By the time he heard about them missing days later, he'd convinced himself his information wasn't relevant. Different area. Different trail. Probably not the same campsite. He'd made a mistake, compounded it by staying quiet. Guilt, shame, fear of being blamed. Torres verified everything. Marcus's permit, timeline, route, everything checked out. Pure chance he'd found the camp. Bad judgment he'd kept quiet, but not criminal. Torres let him go. The timeline mattered, though. Marcus found the camp Tuesday morning, 4 days after they ran. If he'd reported it immediately, would it have made a difference? Maybe. Emma struggled with that thought. The new search launched Thursday morning. 20 searchers spread along the game trail, starting from campsite, moving northeast. Dogs sniffed every foot. Searchers checked both sides, looking for any sign. Mile 1, nothing. Mile 2, still nothing. But the trail was clear, well worn, easy to follow even at night. Mile 3, terrain changed, steeper, rockier. Trail narrowed. This was where mistakes happen, where someone running might trip, fall, get hurt. Mile 4, one of the dogs stopped. Alert. Everyone converged. 10 feet off trail in heavy brush, the searchers found it. Fabric, blue, weathered. A jacket, woman's medium. The tag read Mitchell, Sarah's jacket, 4 miles from camp. Why remove it? People in panic make strange decisions. The team searched carefully. Found more. David's water bottle, empty. His headlamp, broken. Then Sarah's hiking boot, just one. The searchers' hearts sank. That was a bad sign. Paradoxical undressing. A terminal symptom of severe hypothermia. Torres arrived, looked at the evidence trail, all pointing deeper into forest, further from any rescue. He made the decision. Cadaver dogs. This was now a recovery operation. The cadaver dogs arrived by evening, worked the area. Within an hour, both alerted. Same location, 50 feet from the boot. The forensic team carefully cleared the area. Then they found them, Sarah and David Mitchell, together, at the base of a large cedar tree. Sarah partially covered by David, his arm around her, protective even in death. The evidence was clear. Exposure, hypothermia, dehydration. They'd run 4 miles in darkness, without adequate clothing, without water, without shelter. Got disoriented, went off the game trail, pushed deeper into forest thinking they were going toward safety, but they were going away from it. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. Too exhausted, too cold, too lost. They'd stopped at the cedar tree, held each other, and died waiting for dawn. 4 miles. In daylight with a map, it's an hour walk. In darkness, while lost, it might as well be 40. The forest that had seemed so peaceful during their camping trip became a maze. The adventure they'd loved became a trap. The wilderness they'd respected killed them. Not with violence, not with drama, just with indifference, with cold, with distance, with the simple fact that humans are fragile things in places that don't care whether they survive. Detective Torres stood at the recovery site, watched the forensic team work, thought about all the ways this could have been different. If the Mitchells had stayed in their tent, if Marcus had reported the abandoned camp, if the original search had expanded northeast, if the trail cameras had been found sooner. So many small moments, anyone different, and maybe Sarah and David Mitchell would have survived. But they hadn't, and now 5 years later they were finally going home. The medical examiner's report arrived 1 week after the recovery. Dr. Patricia Lindstrom had examined hundreds of wilderness deaths. This one followed a pattern she'd seen before. Panic, poor decision, fatal consequence. Sarah Mitchell died first, approximately 36 hours after leaving camp. Severe hypothermia, dehydration. Her core body temperature had dropped below 90 degrees. At that point, the body shuts down. Organs fail. Consciousness fades. The medical evidence suggested she'd been disoriented in her final hours. The removed boot, the discarded jacket, classic signs of terminal hypothermia. Her brain telling her body she was hot when she was actually dying from cold. David survived longer, maybe 12 more hours. He'd stayed with Sarah, tried to keep her warm. His body showed signs of extreme exhaustion. Dehydration was severe, but what killed him was exposure combined with what Dr. Lindstrom called broken heart syndrome, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, extreme emotional stress causing actual heart failure. David had watched his wife die, held her as she went, then his body gave up. He'd curled around Sarah, pulled her close, and his heart stopped, not from cold alone, from grief. The timeline was brutal in its simplicity. Friday evening they'd set up camp, happy, safe, excited. Saturday and Sunday were perfect camping days, hiking, relaxing, living their adventure. Sunday night at 10:03 p.m., everything changed. A bear appeared. They panicked, ran. Within 15 minutes they were off the game trail, lost, in darkness, without adequate gear. They'd probably realized their mistake quickly. David's headlamp was found broken a mile from camp. After that, they had no light, just moonlight filtering through dense canopy. Not enough. The forest at night is disorienting even with light. Without it, you're blind. Every direction looks the same. Every tree identical. They'd pushed forward thinking they were going toward the trailhead, toward safety, toward help. But the forest had turned them around. They were going deeper, further from any chance of rescue. By Monday morning, they were exhausted, dehydrated. The water bottle found empty suggested they'd drunk their emergency water, probably by midday Monday. After that, no water. July heat, physical exertion, fear, dehydration sets in fast, judgment fails, decision-making becomes impossible. They would have known they were in trouble, would have known they needed help, but they were miles from anywhere, miles from anyone, alone in thousands of acres of forest. Sarah's condition deteriorated Monday night. The jacket removal happened then, her body's temperature regulation failing. She felt hot, thought she was overheating. Took off the jacket, then the boot. David tried to help, tried to keep her moving, keep her warm, but there was nothing he could do. No water, no shelter, no way to call for help, just trees and darkness, and his wife dying. Tuesday morning Sarah died. David held her, stayed with her, refused to leave her body. He could have tried to continue, could have left her and attempted to find help, but he didn't. He stayed. Maybe loyalty, maybe love, maybe exhaustion. Maybe he knew he wouldn't make it either, so he held his wife and waited for help that would never come, waited for dawn, waited for his body to give up. By Tuesday evening he was dead too. While they were dying, Marcus Webb found their camp, looked at it, left, continued his hike, went home, told no one. 4 days after the Mitchells ran, search teams were looking in the wrong area. 2 miles west, searching terrain the couple had never reached. By the time the search expanded, David and Sarah had been dead for days. Nothing could have saved them at that point. But if Marcus had reported the abandoned camp immediately, if search teams had started from the correct location, if they'd searched northeast instead of west, maybe Sarah would have survived Monday. Maybe David could have been found in time. Maybe is a cruel word when applied to death. Emma received the medical examiner's report in her Portland apartment. Read it alone. She'd asked Torres not to summarize. Wanted the full details. Needed to know exactly what her sister experienced. The report was clinical, precise, horrifying. Emma read how Sarah's body temperature dropped, how her judgment failed, how she removed clothing thinking she was hot while dying from cold. Emma read how David stayed with her, how he died from a combination of exposure and literal heartbreak, how they were found together, neither alone, both gone. Emma spent 3 days processing the report. Then she made arrangements, brought her sister home. The funeral was held in Portland, a church Emma and Sarah had attended as children. The service was packed. 300 people, friends, family, hikers who'd never met the Mitchells but felt connected to their story. Emma spoke, kept it short, said Sarah loved wilderness, died doing what she loved, in a place she found beautiful. Emma didn't mention the bear, didn't mention the panic, didn't mention hypothermia or dehydration or any of the clinical details, just said Sarah and David were together, and they came home together. David's family held a separate service in Denver, smaller, more private, but the message was the same. He'd died protecting the woman he loved, died refusing to leave her. That was who David was, loyal, protective, loving to the end. His father spoke about David's passion for the outdoors, how he and Sarah had built their relationship on shared adventures, how it was fitting in a tragic way that they died together in wilderness. They'd lived for it, died in it, together. The story became national news, not because of deaths themselves. Wilderness deaths happen every year, but because of the trail cameras, because footage existed. News outlets requested it. Torres refused. Too personal, too painful, but details leaked. The bear, the panic, the run. The story resonated, reminded people how fragile humans are in wild places. Wilderness safety organizations used the case as teaching. What to do with bears, how panic kills, why staying put beats running. The footage became training material, shown to rangers, search and rescue teams, wilderness guides. Here's what not to do. Here's what panic looks like. The Wildlife Research Organization faced scrutiny. Why cameras there? Why not removed? The organization explained, monitoring bear populations, tracking movement, understanding behavior. Cameras were legal, properly registered, legitimate research. Nobody had done wrong, but footage revealed tragedy nobody predicted. That footage changed protocols. Organizations now check cameras monthly, review footage regularly. If distress recorded, they notify authorities immediately. Trail cameras became search and rescue tools. Several lost hikers, since located using footage. Sarah and David's death led to procedures that saved lives. Small comfort, but something. Emma established a memorial fund, the Mitchell Wilderness Safety Foundation. Free wilderness training, bear safety, proper camping, what to do if lost, partners with search and rescue, funds equipment, supports training. Emma channels grief into education, makes sure the tragedy means something. The Blackwood Forest became a teaching site. Rangers lead groups to the area, explain what happened, show proper techniques, demonstrate bear safety, talk about crisis decision-making. The forest that killed the Mitchells now educates people to survive it. A memorial marker was placed at the trailhead. Simple stone, 2 names, Sarah and David Mitchell. Together in adventure, together in memory. No dates, no details, just acknowledgement. Hikers stop, read it, reflect, remember wilderness is beautiful and deadly. Emma visits the memorial twice a year, spring and fall. She hikes to where her sister died. It's not morbid, it's closure. She sits at the cedar tree, talks to Sarah, updates her on life, on the foundation, on mom and dad, on all the small things Sarah missed. Emma doesn't cry anymore, did that for years. Now she just visits, remembers, honors. The trail cameras are still there, still recording, still monitoring wildlife. Every month someone checks them, Reviews footage. The clearing where the Mitchells camped shows up occasionally. Empty now. No tents, no people, just forest reclaiming space. Bears pass through regularly. The same bear maybe. Impossible to tell. It does what bears do. Investigates, looks for food, moves on. It has no memory of the night it scared 2 people to death, no awareness it changed lives. It's just a bear, living in forest, being what it is. 5 years after discovery, Emma received a letter from Marcus Webb. He'd been silent since the interview, but he wrote, apologized, not for finding the camp, that was chance, but for not reporting it, for letting guilt silence him. He wondered if his call would have made a difference, would never know. Didn't ask forgiveness, just wanted her to know he was sorry. Emma wrote back, short letter, said she didn't blame him, blamed the bear, blamed panic, blamed bad luck. Marcus made a mistake, but Sarah and David's death wasn't his fault. Cascade of small moments. She told Marcus to forgive himself. Someone needed to. The case closed in 2024. Torres filed final report. Accidental deaths, environmental exposure, wildlife encounter. No foul play. No one to charge, just tragedy. Report included recommendations, expand search protocols, deploy trail cameras, improve wilderness education, update bear safety training. The Pacific Northwest hiking community never forgot the Mitchells. Their story became cautionary tale. Remember Sarah and David. Remember what panic does. Remember to stay calm. Remember wilderness doesn't care how experienced you are. It just exists, beautiful and indifferent. Emma thinks about how Sarah did everything right. Good gear, proper planning, filed permits. Then one moment, one decision, one panicked run, and preparation meant nothing. The forest took her anyway, not maliciously, just took her, because that's what wilderness does. But Emma also thinks about love, how David stayed with Sarah, how he died holding her, how after 5 years they were still together, still touching, his arm still around her. Love that transcended death, that chose staying together over solo survival. Maybe that's the real story, not the tragedy, the love that refused to separate. The forest doesn't remember Sarah and David Mitchell. Trees don't hold memory. Bears don't recall scaring people. The trail continues. Hikers pass through. Some know the story, most don't. The clearing where they camped is just a clearing. The cedar tree where they died is just a tree. Nature has no sentiment, no memorial. No acknowledgement, just continuation, life and death, and life again. Endless cycle. Humans are brief interruptions, moments of noise and eternal silence, then gone. Forest remains, but people remember. Emma remembers. The hiking community remembers. Everyone who heard the story remembers. And maybe that's enough. Maybe memory is how we cheat indifference. We can't change what happened, can't bring them back, can't make wilderness less dangerous or more forgiving. But we can remember, can learn, can teach others, can make the next person more prepared, more educated, more likely to survive their moment of panic. Sarah and David Mitchell loved wilderness, died in it, because of it, despite all their knowledge and preparation. They became a statistic, 2 more names on the long list of people wilderness has claimed. But they also became a lesson, a warning, a reminder. And in that, maybe there's meaning. Maybe their deaths prevent others. Maybe someone hears their story and makes a different choice, stays in the tent, doesn't run, survives. Maybe that's legacy enough. The trail cameras still record. The forest still stands. Bears still wander. Hikers still come. Some prepared, some not. Some will survive their mistakes. Some won't. That's wilderness. That's reality. That's the price of seeking beauty in places that don't care if you live or die. Sarah and David paid that price. Together, in a place they loved, in a moment that shouldn't have killed them, but did. And now they're home, together, finally at rest. The forest released them, 5 years late. But it released them. And maybe that's all you can ask from wilderness, that eventually it gives back what it takes, that eventually the lost are found, that eventually there's an ending, even if it's not the one you wanted. Emma visits the memorial today, 10 years after Sarah died, 5 years after they found her. The stone is weathered, moss growing on north side, names still clear. Emma touches the stone, says hello, says goodbye, says she's okay now, says she hopes Sarah is too. Then she hikes away, back to her car, back to her life, back to a world that kept turning after her sister stopped. And somewhere in Blackwood Forest, the trail cameras keep recording, keep watching, Keep documenting the endless dance of life and death in places humans visit but never truly belong. The footage continues, the forest remains, and Sarah and David Mitchell rest together beneath trees that will outlive everyone who remembers them. That's wilderness. That's forever. That's enough.